Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. As Michigan fans, there's going to be a lot of fun storylines to follow over the next couple of weeks and months. It obviously starts in spring practice. Bryce Underwood, Chip Lindsey. What is this new offense going to look like for Michigan? But on the recruiting trail in 2026, it is very early. But it looks like Michigan is going to be taking some massive swings on the recruiting trail in 2026 as well. And it kind of aligns with what we've talked about over the last couple of weeks and months, and it just feels like Michigan's operating a little bit differently on the recruiting trail. And I think that fires up a lot of Michigan fans. Want to look at some of the early names to keep an eye for with Michigan in this 2026 class on the offensive side of the football only. We're going to take a look at some of the top defensive prospects a little bit later on this week. But as it sits right now on the offensive side of the football, what are the names that we should be looking at as Michigan fans? Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Michigan fans, just want to say thank you to you guys. The high school recruiting trail is something I've always loved, and I love talking about it. The amount of Michigan fans that have been dialed in to the recruiting trail over the last couple of weeks and months, it's been amazing. It's going to be really fun to talk about this program on the recruiting trail over the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, to the Michigan fans who like the nitty gritty, would love to hear some of your favorite prospects for Michigan on the offensive side of the football. Let it fly in the comment section. Those are the players that we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks and months. Without further ado, let's get into it now. We've talked about the quarterback spot. Chip Lindsey has Michigan in the running for some of the best quarterbacks across the country. I noted Ryder Lyons. That to me, we talked about it this weekend, so I don't want to talk about it too much right now. Keep an eye on Ryder Lyons. He was a USC lean throughout the most of this process. It sounds like USC might be going in a different direction at the quarterback spot in their 2026 class. I think the other program to watch is Oregon. They're also sniffing around a guy like Jared Curtis. Michigan, I think, has a bigger shot with Ryder Lyons than a lot of us appreciate. And it makes a lot of sense because Ryder Lyons, a five-star quarterback, he's going to be going on a mission trip for his first year. So he's really a 2027 kid, which lines up really well with Bryce Underwood. Ryder Lyons is going to be a true freshman as Bryce is going into year three. Talk about quarterback runways. That's how you want it to look. And so keep an eye on Ryder Lyons. The running back position, this is probably the position that fires me up the most. I mean, Michigan's going after two of the best running backs in the class. It starts with the number one running back in Savion Hitter from Virginia. Now, there are some heavy hitters involved with this recruitment, but it sounds like Coach Alford's got Michigan in a really good spot. You take a look at Savion Hitter. What I love the most about him is he's got some straight line speed. That is very evident on the film, and he's filled out his frame really well. Was kind of a smaller running back as a sophomore, up to 200 pounds going through his junior year. Did not lose any sort of athleticism or juice in terms of a kind of quick twitch and long speed standpoint. He's not just a linear guy. And that's kind of what stands out to me, both about Savion Hitter and Javion Osborne. Both of these guys, you go back to Michigan in 2024, and look, y'all know I'm a Dono fan, and Don Edwards has come up big for Michigan a lot during his career at Michigan, was kind of a linear guy. And when it came time to make people miss in that, short area phone booth type situation, sometimes struggled to run behind his pads. What I love about Savion Hitter is he has that burst in long speed that Donovan Edwards has, but he also has that ability to, one, work through contact, and secondly, I mean, the short area quicks. That's what I value more at the running back position than anything else. How often do you get to use your top end gear as a running back? Not very often. You want running backs to have that burst and have that top end gear to go hit home runs, but I'd rather have my running backs be able to make people miss routinely in short areas. Savion Hitter, he has that in a big way. Very similar to a guy like Javion Osborne. And Javion Osborne, a little bit shorter, a little bit thicker in the legs, deals with contact maybe a little bit better, but also really, really good short area stuff. And so I look at both Savion Hitter and Javion Osborne, in my opinion, two of the best running backs in this 2026 class. Now, you look at Javion Osborne, this feels like a Michigan, Texas recruitment with Miami maybe getting in the mix as well. Texas just lost their running backs coach to Shar Choice, who was the leader in this recruitment with Javion Osborne, which I think really helps Michigan in this recruitment. It kind of, you probably lean Texas in-state kid to Shar Choice recruiting him. Now all of a sudden you look at Michigan and say it sounds like Michigan might be the leader in the clubhouse, if you will, with Javion Osborne. Do I think Michigan will take both of these running backs? You certainly would take them both. There's no question mark about that. Do I think Michigan lands both of them? Probably not. You end up with either of them. That is a very good running back to have in your 2026 class. I personally like Savion Hitter a little bit more because I think that burst at the second level might be a little bit better. But Javion Osborne, really, really good running back as well. And this was one of the reasons we brought Coach Alford over, is what he can do recruiting the best running backs in the country to Michigan. And it's a very appealing offense to be. You know they're going to have a good offensive line. You know Michigan's going to want to run the football. You know you're going to have a good big workload. Both Javion Osborne and Savion Hitter want to go to offenses where they're going to get used. Michigan's going to do that. Now, the next position, the pass catchers, probably the most intriguing position for us Michigan fans on the recruiting trail. Can we get this position group? Can we get better talent at the pass catcher position coming into Michigan? Personally, I think this will be a later on in the process. I'm talking November, December. Michigan did some of their best work on the recruiting trail at the end of the cycle. Talk about Bryce Underwood or a guy like Ty Haywood, even Andrew Babaloa committed early, Jordan Young. I do think the pass catcher position will be a little bit later on for Michigan, because what I think needs to happen is Michigan needs to show proof of concept of this new offense before they can get top wide receivers coming to this program. Look, I think a lot of wide receivers are excited about Bryce Underwood coming to Michigan. We want to see this offense operate a little bit differently before we really look to come to Michigan as a top wide receiver. And I think that makes sense. CJ Sadler, number one player in the state of Michigan. What interests me about CJ Sadler is he could legitimately play both sides of the football. He dynamic athlete. Now, as a pass catcher, he is extremely dangerous with the football in his hands. A little bit shorter, has some long speed, and actually can work vertically down the field better than you would think for a 5'10", 170-pound wide receiver. What I think would be an interesting conversation. When you take a look at some of his defensive stuff, Mikey Sandstrom vibes. And maybe it would be a very similar route where maybe he comes in, plays wide receiver early, makes the change. If I'm Michigan, I'm taking him to play whatever position he wants. He's not a guy that you say, hey, we ain't going to recruit you as a wide receiver. Hey, whatever position you want to come, if you want to come to Michigan, we'll figure it out with you. I look at that nickel cornerback spot and say, this kid could be the next best nickel for Michigan football over the next couple of years. That's how good I think he can be at that nickel spot. Elite caliber athlete, in-state kid that's getting buzz from all over the country. This is one of those that, hey, you want to protect your borders. It starts with CJ Sadler in 2026. And if he plays offense, the conversation is, hey, we just got to get more difference makers with the football in their hands. CJ Sadler is that guy. We'll talk about some more wide receivers as the process goes on for Michigan. The tight end, that's probably my favorite. You have Matt Ludwig from Montana, I believe. Brock Harris would be my guy. Brock Harris, 6'6", 240. What stands out to me the most is, of course, at 6'6", he is elite with the football in the air. I mean, him in contested catch situations, it's not a 50-50 ball when you're talking Brock Harris. What makes this kid, I think, potentially special is his movement skills at 6'6". When you're talking a lot about 6'6" tight ends, they ain't the greatest movers. They struggle to create separation. Not Brock Harris. Brock Harris is a very, very fluid athlete for that size. Probably needs to fill out the frame a little bit. 6'6", 240. He's got plenty of frame to fill it out. Probably needs to add a little bit more weight, specifically in the lower half, to get it done in line as a run blocker. Difference maker as a pass catcher. In Michigan, I think will continue to have their passing attack go through elite tight ends. It's a position that Michigan recruits really well, has historically utilized very well in the passing attack. And it's a position that's pretty easy for Michigan to recruit because of the track record we have with tight ends that really produce. I mean, take a look at the offenses that use the tight ends the most. It's probably Georgia and Michigan. And that's why Georgia and Michigan continue to recruit the tight end position exceptionally well. From Utah, I think Michigan's got a really good chance at Brock Harris. He'll be on campus in the summer for an official visit, maybe get him on campus for a spring visit as well. like Brock Harris a lot. And on the offensive line, the conversation starts with Jackson Camwell. This kid, you talk about smash football, right? Sherrone Moore talks about it all the time. Jackson Camwell is smash football. He's a guy that I just talk about the athletic profile first. 6'7", 300 pounds, carries that weight exceptionally well. He's one of the best throwers in track and field that you see in the country. From what I've been reading, I'm much of a track guy. It's legit, like potentially could high end thrower at the college level and potentially the Olympics. That's from what I've read. You see that power manufacture itself on the football field. He has devastating power in his hands. It starts with the lower body, it ends in the hands, and he just completely shocks opposing defensive linemen. But then you look at him in pass protection, you know he can move bodies off the line of scrimmage in the run game. Then you look at pass protection, basketball background, very good basketball player as well. Very good feet for this size. And it's so hard to find offensive tackles that have this massive size to him in Jackson Camwell, who almost goes 6'8". And he's all a 6'8", because you see him standing next to Sherrone Moore. He's got a couple inches. Sherrone Moore's a big dude. And Jackson Camwell, he's all of 6'7.5". Amazing feet. The footwork, probably due to that basketball background and how he carries the weight. Very good. This is, to me, a potential year one starter for Michigan at tackle, and maybe you can move Ty Haywood into guard. In my opinion, him and Achano are the two top tackles. And Jackson, these type of tackles don't come along very often. And it sounds like Michigan, to me, from what I'm seeing on the recruiting trail, Michigan will identify the guys that they want to push their chips in, like they did with Ty Haywood, like they did with Bryce Underwood, like they did with Andrew Babaloa. Jackson Camwell seems to be that guy for Michigan in this 2026 class. I would expect Michigan to be very aggressive with Jackson Camwell. The other tackle that I really like here is Malachi Lee, from Honolulu, Hawaii. It's harder to find some film on him. He's probably a little taller than 6'6" now, 315 pounds, similar to Jackson Camwell, carries that weight exceptionally well, has a basketball background, so he's a very good athlete for that size. And again, goes back to, it's so hard to find these big, long tackles that have functional athleticism. Malachi Lee has that. Probably not the devastating power in the hands that Jackson Camwell has, and that can get developed as you get Malachi Lee into your strength and conditioning program. But let's just start with, hey, we're going to bet on 6'6" plus. He probably closer to 6'7", 315-pound tackles that can move. And not that I know Malachi Lee, so I don't love talking about this, but I'm going to say it for him. Seems like a great kid. Seems like a kid that Michigan likes to prioritize on the recruiting trail. Really good dude. Shows a lot of gratitude on social media. One of the things I think Michigan always looks for is, hey, do guys fit what we are as a program from a culture standpoint? Malachi Lee seems to be that guy. Heavy hitters on the offensive side of the football. And I think we know Michigan's going to prioritize the offensive line like they always do. What I think we're all most interested in is, hey, with Bryce Underwood coming in, with Chip Lindsey taking over this offense with what we think is going to be a much more prolific passing attack, can we attract the top-end pass catchers to really get this offense humming over the next couple of years? By far the biggest storyline for me, early on, there's a lot of buzz and a lot of potential for this Michigan program in the 2026 class. And if Michigan can close on some of these guys, you're going to be looking at a top 5 class in the country. And you start stacking these kind of classes, like the class Michigan stacked in 2025, stack it again in 2026. That is how you get this Michigan program to not every, couple of years winning Big Ten championships. And that's how you compete for a year in, year out. And that's what Sherrone Moore wants this program to look like. You combine the player development and culture that Michigan has with elite talent acquisition, where it seems like Michigan's going. That is the recipe to be a perennial college football program. That's, I think, what excites the Michigan fans, or at least what excites me so much about the future of this program. We'll sign out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. A lot of fireworks, ideally, coming over the next couple of weeks and months. We'll be breaking it down. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.